Welcome to the Daily Thunder podcast. I am your host, Brandon Rahbar, beat writer for dailythunder.com. Every week, maybe, we will have guests ranging from national sports writers and local reporters to OKC celebrities and Thunder staff and players. But this week is a special quarantined, I don't know what to call this. I'm so scared to make any jokes that are offensive. Cray and John, you guys own DT. I'll let you guys name this episode.
Well, let's do a just disclaimer. The coronavirus is a serious public health concern. We're not making light of it. It is worse for people to get sick and or die across the population than for basketball not to get played or people not to read our website. We understand that, and that's our disclaimer. And other jokes or moments of brevity are take that into account, please, and don't judge us too harshly for all of Brandon's offensive jokes.
There we go. Now it's a free-for-all.
That's a really long title.
I would listen to the episode personally. So I am joined by, this is the DT family right here. We have John Napier and Cray, Allred, the owners and publishers of Daily Thunder, and Olivia Panchal, my partner in crime. How you doing, guys?
I'm great.
So first things first, let's talk about Rudy Gobert and last night in Oklahoma City. You know, it was just moments. It was to me like a movie. Like, you know, in a movie, like it's never believable when like the bomb is about to explode and it's like a ticking time bomb, literally, and it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, and then they like stop it right then. I'm like, okay, that would never happen in real life. That's pretty much exactly what happened last night. There were moments from tip-off and a Thunder medical staffer ran out into the court and stopped the game literally before tip-off. What are you guys' thoughts on everything that happened last night and the Thunder and Oklahoma City kind of being like the spotlight of the coronavirus for last night and kind of like everybody internationally was looking at us? John, what were just kind of your feelings?
I think that your reference to a movie is very accurate. It was really surreal watching it play out. And of course, it had to be Oklahoma City where it all sort of broke down. And it was the reason, I mean, it happened in Oklahoma City where the league decided that they were going to cancel the rest of the season or suspend the rest of the season. So I don't know. I'm kind of speechless about it all.
Now, Cray, a lot of people are, blaming Rudy Gobert. The whole, he was touching the microphones. Everybody's seen the video by now. The reporters, a lot of the reporters are saying, hey, he was doing it as a show of solidarity for us. But, fans and some other players are kind of seeming to blame him, and he's kind of getting reamed. What's your thoughts on Rudy Gobert and how much at fault is he? How much at fault are the Jazz or the NBA for letting it get to this point?
So it was a full-blown conspiracy by the Jazz not to lose the 4 seed to the Thunder, which they would have if they played the game.
Right.
Rudy Gobert is fully complicit. No, I would say that I don't think it was overblown. Like, I think he was a laughingstock for a reason for a while there. And he, even in his apology, said, I'm willing to help, be the example for what not to do. So I think he's willing to take his medicine, pardon the analogy, but he has apologized. He obviously is going to feel bad. He did not cause coronavirus. He did not proliferate statistically, he's not going to be the reason it spread any further than it would have otherwise. It's just he was a bad lesson of how to react to it. So I think we should, accept his apology, let him stand in as what not to do, and hopefully not, want to like do things like prosecute him or ban him from the league. I've seen people actually suggesting things like that. I think that's hopefully, people are mad and upset, but maybe they'll calm down and not be so intense towards Rudy.
Olivia, in your future medical opinion, what are your thoughts on on him touching that stuff, is there any chance? I think we know the answer to this, but what's the risk there of him touching the phones and the recorders and things like that, and how culpable could he have been? And it obviously wasn't the coronavirus, but just even a normal cold.
Yeah, no, I honestly think that he probably had coronavirus before any of that happened. And it's just a really unfortunate coincidence that he did that and that everyone caught it on tape. And then this also happened to him. Really unfortunate coincidence. But I think that he didn't know at that time that he was sick or that he had anything. But just as a general rule, we shouldn't go around touching other people's stuff or coughing or sneezing on other people's stuff. And I think that's just general courtesy between people. And I feel like we should all already know that. But like from a medical perspective, the likelihood that that is what caused this whole thing, that one action caused this whole thing to go down, is probably pretty unlikely. So it's just a really unfortunate coincidence, I think, for Rudy that happened. But I guess, like you said, let it be. If that has to be the lesson, then let it be the lesson to take it seriously.
I think what strikes me about this whole situation is the multiple layers of irresponsibility that ended up with what happened last night. First, Gobert's sick, and then they test him for all these other things, and they're not sure what it is. They decide that it's the test him for coronavirus at the very last minute. That was sort of I guess we'll give it a try when we don't know what else it is. They brought him here to Oklahoma City, putting everybody here at risk. They had all the players tried out to the game with a test pending, had 18,000 people show up to the arena with a test pending.
Yeah, more like 13,000.
Okay, you're right. That's an important clarification there. So, but the Utah Jazz and the organization, Gobert was irresponsible. The NBA was irresponsible and not calling the game earlier. I mean, this is, I don't want to get all Stephen A. Smith, but I feel like the league, the Jazz, so many people did not behave responsibly, and that is what has kind of induced some of this anxiety and panic that exists right now. There may not be direct risk that Gobert or Mitchell was passing coronavirus to the fans at the arena, but what it does is it incites panic. It makes people worried, and they were in the arena. They may have, been close, the people courtside or near the floor, maybe worried that they got too close to Donovan Mitchell, the people right behind the Jazz bench. So even though the risk to the public may be very little to almost zero, with a test pending and the NBA not sure if one of their players who was about to play in a game had coronavirus, because Quinn Snyder wanted to play Gobert, they should have canceled the game way earlier. They were stupid. And they need to be called on that for being stupid and making everybody worry. Because I've seen people on Facebook say, I was at the game. Should I be worried? Do I need to go get a coronavirus test?
Can I throw a medical disclaimer in here, please? If you were in the arena during this game and this situation, you do not have coronavirus. You don't. Unless you interacted directly with Rudy Gobert, or you interacted directly with someone who interacted directly with Rudy Gobert, you were too far away. So this is what we call an airborne virus, which means it travels through like air particles, or like if you cough, it travels through your spit through the air onto other people. So those little spit particles are not traveling all the way up to Loud City. So don't freak out if you were in the presence of the arena or downtown Oklahoma City yesterday. And also, I think it's important for people not to go get tested for coronavirus unless you have a reason to believe that you have it. Because when we just go get tested to just get tested, you are overburdening lab workers who have to run these tests and the labs that are running these tests. And it's just not necessary. And you're taking away tests from people who are at higher risk. So don't do that. And don't go to the emergency room if you think you have coronavirus. Call the coronavirus hotline and tell them your symptoms and your situation. If you go to the emergency room, you are likely to spread that to not only other people in the waiting room, but people that are patients at the hospital that might be immunocompromised. So make use of telemedicine and call the hotline. Don't go to the ER if you think you have coronavirus. That's my medical disclaimer.
Okay, so now let's talk about the Thunder and what this means for the Thunder. First of all, from what we know, they're kind of going to be self-quarantined for a while, and they're staying in Oklahoma City. Every NBA team is staying in their market for the next few days at least. What do we know about, what do you guys know the latest on this? And Olivia, what do you think that means as far as?
Yeah, I think it was announced this afternoon that the Oklahoma City players will be tested. Not sure if that's happening today or tomorrow or in a couple days, but I think that the Oklahoma Health Department or whatever confirmed that all Oklahoma City players will be tested.
On that point, Olivia, so what are your thoughts, though, that you had mentioned that you should only get tested if you're showing symptoms? There are a shortage of tests. It's very hard for people to get tests right now. Mm-hmm. And if you can get a test, I'm hearing that most people, 48, 72 hours, still don't have the results of their tests. Right. What do you think about the use of resources for all the 48 Jazz personnel who were tested last night, and then again testing all the Oklahoma City personnel today or tomorrow, whenever that happens?
I understand the logic behind it and the willingness to need to know, especially if you're one of those people that are Rudy Gobert's teammates and you don't want to live in this fear of knowing or not knowing. But I also think that tests should be allocated to people who have the highest risk of testing positive. And like you said, there's a shortage of tests. And for regular people, it's taking 2 to 3 days for them to get their results. And so I really think that, as the public, we kind of have to question, it's not fair that, you can get 58 tests done in 12 hours if you are an NBA player, but there are 11 people in Oklahoma who are still waiting for their test results to come. And that's like a larger question, a larger debate to be had about fairness of wealth or whatever you want to call it, or the healthcare system. Now that Donovan Mitchell has also tested positive, and players from the Oklahoma City Thunder were in contact with Donovan Mitchell last night. They were both on the court. They might have talked. They might have shook hands. They were in close proximity, possibly. That makes some sense to have those players tested as well. But it's just testing just to test is what I think is a waste of resources. So I saw something today that some people at the Board of Governors meeting for the NBA today suggested having all NBA players tested. And I think that's silly.
So before we move on and talk about the Thunder and like the NBA season and stuff like that, one last thing. We talked a lot about testing. I did want to bring up one thing that I think is important. So 58 tests, only one came back positive. That was Donovan Mitchell. And of course, Rudy Gobert is not included in that 58. Olivia, do you know if those other 57 people are in the clear, or they could still be in the incubation period and it's showing up as a negative, but possibly more of those Jazz roster and staff employees could actually have the coronavirus?
Yeah, they could. A single test is not definitive, and that can be a benefit to waiting until you show symptoms or waiting a couple days after you've been exposed to the person that you think gave you coronavirus. So that's why yesterday a lot of people were upset that the Thunder team left the arena without being tested, but it is very unlikely that if they had a test that it would have shown anything, especially if they hadn't been at all exposed to coronavirus before they might have possibly gotten it from Donovan Mitchell. So it was unlikely to show anything on the day of. And I think that in that situation, self-quarantine is sufficient. They checked everyone's temperature. They asked everyone for their symptoms, told everyone to go home and to not interact with other people, see what happens. If your symptoms change, maybe in 5 days, someone from the Thunder will start feeling sick, and that's a different story where you might want to test. But as of last night, I didn't think it was necessary to test everyone. But it is necessary to quarantine and to not go around spreading something if you have something.
So we know that the Thunder, or not just the Thunder, the NBA is going to take at least 30 days off. Adam Silver says they're going to reassess after 30 days. And we don't know if it's going to be, an abbreviated schedule when they come back, if they're going to go straight to the playoffs or what's going to happen. Plenty of speculation, so we'll go ahead and add to the speculation. What do you guys think? How long would you guess we're going to be without basketball? And what do you think they do as far as the schedule goes? Cray?
I think it is most likely that the playoffs are going to happen. I think the owners will hope and pray and not give up on playing every single remaining regular season game until it's just a practical impossibility. but I think it is going to be a practical impossibility. But I would be pretty surprised if we don't eventually get playoffs, because the coronavirus is in all likelihood not going to seriously harm a player. So even in the worst case scenarios, we won't have situations where players are, not to be glib, but where, a player is, as far as what we know about it now, a player's not going to die, right? And teams are not going to be in shambles in that way. It might be a player is, out with a sickness like they would be in a typical postseason run. And to me, that's not going to outweigh the owner's interest in making those games happen, getting whatever revenue they can, doing whatever altered setup they can with fans. So I just think the playoffs are still a likelihood, and that they'll keep giving lip service to the regular season, but I just think practically it'll be hard to squeeze it all in. So I would guess that the teams that, if you can't do a full regular season, the teams that are going to complain about abbreviated regular season are going to be those who are on the playoffs bubble. If they are in fact selling tickets to the playoffs, those owners are going to want the chance of that. So I would say whatever kind of lead up to the playoffs, as far as non-playoff, you don't want to start the playoffs day one when you come back. I would guess whatever kind of, if I think the Blazers are like 3.5 games out or something like that, whatever kind of like the most last ditch, you had a window to make the playoff, that's 4 games or 5 games, something like that. I think they might do an abbreviated schedule just as a precursor to the playoffs that technically gives teams on the bubble a chance to qualify, and then proceed with the playoffs as close to normal as possible. That would be my guess. That's a lot of speculation, but I think money talks, and I think the owners will prove that in the long run.
As far as the Thunder are concerned, if the season were to just go straight to the playoffs, you're looking at a matchup, ironically, with the Utah Jazz in the first round, which, obviously, I think that's a good matchup for the Thunder. And I got to wonder what, if Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are fully recovered by then, like what happens with that? Do they still let them play? Is there any sort of, who knows what's going to happen with all of that? Now, I do think that it's kind of a raw deal that last night's game would have been for home court advantage. Of course, that may not matter if fans aren't in attendance, but it would have been for home court advantage. And, they were going to be without Gobert, and then the game didn't get to be played. There's a lot of things that could kind of work against the Thunder. They're kind of in a weird spot because right now they don't have their first-round draft pick because they have a top 10 record, but they're not quite high enough to have home court advantage in the playoffs. It's almost like you want them to fall down to 6 so they can get their first-rounder back, or they can move up to 4 to get home court advantage. Then there's also the Nuggets schedule was really backloaded. It was really difficult to end the season, and the Thunder owned the Nuggets first round pick, and so that was likely to improve because the Nuggets were going to pick up some L's going forward. So the Thunder are kind of in a weird spot. Do you think they even care about any of that, or do you think they're just like, whatever schedule you give us, whatever playoffs you give us, that's fine? What do you guys think about that, John?
First of all, I'm going to make a prediction that we don't have any games played for at least 60 days. So 30 days is the marker, but I think 60 days is what we're looking at.
I agree.
The second part that I was going to say is, as far as the way that the schedule plays out and how that works, I think it's going to depend heavily on what works out with the TV partners, because they're the ones who foot a lot of the bill for the league and where a lot of the revenue comes from. And they're going to have to figure out how they're going to manage baseball schedules that are about to begin, the NHL suspended. So, how are they going to manage that season? Of course, the NBA and any other summer sports that might have been on the schedule. How they work that out with their TV partners is probably going to make a big difference in how the schedule plays out.
I'm going to put it at 45 days, so a little bit sooner than what John said. And I think it's largely because of the same reason, though, about the TV providers and the scheduling. I don't think there's a situation where we end up with a longer NBA season where they basically just pick up where we left off and it just goes into August. Not only because it doesn't work for scheduling with the arena and with TV providers and it runs into college football and all that kind of stuff, but it also would just mess up the draft. When would that be? How does that work? The whole thing is a mess when you include the other stuff that happens in the off season. So everything is weird. So I don't think longer is going to happen. I think it's going to err on the side of shorter. And I think the best case scenario would be if we just, like, let's say games restart April 15th, whatever was supposed to happen on April 15th just happens. And we just go on like this little intermission that we had didn't happen, because I think that makes the most sense for scheduling if we don't change everything. And to the teams that are on the bubble, I just say tough. I'm sorry. It's just, this is not an ideal situation for anybody. A lot of my friends are Lakers fans because I went to college in Los Angeles, and they're all just like, this is really frustrating because like this was the season we were going to win another championship, and LeBron only has one more prime left in his 7th prime. So like we need this now. Like we don't know how many more primes LeBron has left. And so I think everyone has a case for why this stinks. And it really stinks for Thunder fans because this is really exciting. We're having a good time. And it was going to be exciting to see how the season played out, especially because the Nuggets and the Jazz both had pretty tough schedules coming up. And it could have been exciting to see how far up the Thunder could go. But I think we should just, if possible, pick up where we left off. And if that means the Thunder play the Jazz, then let's do it. The thing I really like about this team is they're kind of like a no fear team. So I think, like you said, that if for this Thunder team, they're probably thinking, just give us basketball back, just give us whatever situation, and we're going to fight and try to win games and make it to the second round, which is what they were going to do anyway.
Olivia, I did want to ask you though. I am curious. The Thunder have, 34-year-old Chris Paul, and the Lakers have 35-year-old LeBron, or however old they are, 34, 35 years old. Do you think that taking 2 months off and then jumping back, they're that much older now? Or is the rest better for them? Like, do we see the same Chris Paul, a little bit creakier? Like, when you're playing and you sit for a while, you're a little creaky when you come back.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what they're doing in this 60 days. So I believe practice is not allowed. So if any basketball that's being played is probably going to be like more like individual skill work. Someone like Steven Adams, I feel like he's just going to chill for 60 days. I don't really see him like hiring a shooting coach to work on his free throws over the next 60 days or anything like
He's
that.
He's going to be eating beef and playing Fortnite. I can promise you that's what he's going to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. Which he should. Live your best life. And then Chris Paul is just going to like go home to his family as he should, spend time with his family, which he hasn't been able to do this season. But I could see he's getting some workouts in. Maybe he meets up with LeBron and they work out together or something. But it really just depends on what they're doing in the 60 days. If they really are taking a break from basketball and not playing that much, it could be worse. It's kind of like, you got to shake off the rust a little bit, but it could be a good rest for them. The only thing I worry about is like the team right now is so good because of their chemistry and the way that they play together and their unselfishness and playing for each other. And that kind of gets lost over the next 60 days. I hopefully they can just pick right back up, but it did take us a little while at the beginning of the season to get that kind of chemistry. So I hope it's not the kind of same situation where it takes some time for them to get back into that.
Yeah, because being in a rhythm is definitely a real thing in basketball, but hopefully every team is going to have to deal with the same situation, hopefully. So,
Yeah. But as far as like injuries go, and as far as like strain on the body, then taking, if whatever it is, 15 games off, it's going to be great for Chris Paul. It's 15 less games he has to play.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get off of here, John and Cray, from a personal standpoint, Daily Thunder, what's the plan moving forward for Daily Thunder readers and podcast listeners, all those things? What's kind of the plan for our site moving forward?
So the cliff notes are, we don't know exactly what the site's going to look like. We're kind of figuring this out. We're in discussions. We are, selfishly frustrated because we had a really good momentum. We had a really cool rollout plan for heading into the playoffs, and Brandon's writing was great, and Olivia had a piece in the works. And so the short answer is we will have content. We're going to do our best to live up to our name, Daily Thunder, and continue to have daily content. And, we would hope and assume that Hoops fans will be anxious to keep reading about basketball, maybe even especially so since there's not games to watch when they get home at night. So we still feel like we're going to be rolling. It'll be maybe weird. We'll maybe get a little further off topic on some of the stuff we do out of necessity, but there'll be stuff to talk about. The Thunder still exists. The site will not be under quarantine.
Maybe this is a good time to drop a little nugget of something to come. And now we have some time to work on the creativity side of it. Is we will have awesome shirts coming. So if you're wondering whether it's worth to check out dailythunder.com on a Tuesday, it is, because that could be the day we announce our shirts.
Nice. I know one thing will be different. No watch parties anytime soon.
No watch parties. You can still drink Anthem beer.
Yes, good
call.
You
can do watch parties in groups of 2. We'll just separate them all throughout the city. Just 2 people at a time.
That is another thing, though, that we missed out on. I think we had a really awesome watch party for our first one. We had started planning the next one, working with Anthem on making it a pregame destination with transportation to the arena was in the works. So there was a lot of really cool stuff that we were working on that's going to be put on hold right now. But, shouts to Anthem, too, for working with us on that and as being kind of our first major sponsor there. But in the quarantine time, there is nothing better to drink than, your favorite choice of Anthem beer.
Well done. Olivia, John, Cray, thank you for all you do. But continue to go to dailythunder.com. Like Cray said, there's going to be daily content from here on out. No matter what's going on with the coronavirus or with the NBA or with the Thunder, we will keep supplying you with Thunder material. We'll try to do some podcasts here and there as things come up. I know a lot of sports writers and journalists who aren't going to have much to do or talk about over the next few weeks, so maybe I'll call them up and see if they'll do the podcast with me. Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for listening to the Daily Thunder podcast.
Thank you for listening and supporting Daily Thunder. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcast, you might hear it on the show. Thank you again to our guests, Olivia Panchal, Cray, Allred, and John Napier. Be sure to follow at Daily Thunder and our host at Brandon Rahbar on Twitter for the latest Thunder updates. If you become a patron of the show, you'll receive early access to Daily Thunder content, including bonus podcast segments, along with the Weekend Edition, a rundown of the best stories, news, tweets, and shenanigans from the Thunder universe, complete with a letter from the editor written exclusively for our patrons. You can join today at patreon.com/Daily Thunder. This podcast is produced by me, Rachel Jameson. You can follow me at Rach Jameson. Send your questions and feedback to dailythunder@gmail.com and stay on dailythunder.com every day to catch the latest Thunder news, recaps, analysis, interviews, and nonsense. We'll talk to you again soon.